Good morning. My name is Caitlin Kennedy, and I'm a four-year senior. One of the first things I realized when I came to Taft was that first impressions are expectations meant to be broken. One of the first people I met at Taft was Mrs. O'Shea. Within the first week of my freshman year, I learned that this hyper, frazzled, super athletic, Lily Pulitzer-clad woman was my advisor. I remember looking around her office one of my first days and seeing dozens of volleyball and golf trophies along her shelves, all the while thinking that she would be uninterested or even disappointed to hear about my love of theater and complete lack of coordination. Luckily, I could not have been more wrong. Mrs. O'Shea has been supportive of me in all aspects of my life, and while she occasionally teases me for my lack of athletic capabilities, she has never missed a single one of my Taft performances and has even graced the stage a few times herself. You may even recognize her as the superb cheese grater in Beauty and the Beast. My first impression of my four-year advisor was certainly proved wrong, and I don't know what I would have done without Mrs. O'Shea's constant enthusiasm and advice over the years. My sophomore year, I had 5 out of 6 classes with Connie Chung. I remember leaving our first class thinking, wow, that girl is brilliant, and then going on to think, I need to study with her. So, every night, Connie expected me in her room from 6 to 8, when she would tutor me on everything from quadratic functions in algebra to redox reactions in chem, neither of which I have any idea are anymore. After a few weeks of these study sessions, I quickly realized that Connie is more than a straight A student. She is one of the most sincere people I've met at Taft and has always kept her door to me open. She has listened to me complain about my problems, has offered me advice on numerous occasions, and is always up for late-night pasta making. It's been 3 years, and I still seek out Connie's infinite wisdom on a regular basis. Connie, if it wasn't for you, I never would have passed honors chem, but most importantly, I wouldn't have had the countless memories we have shared to look back on. Now, back to sophomore fall, I was auditioning for my second Taft musical. The year before, I had played an answering machine. Seriously. I spoke like the pre-recorded operator lady, and my big line was, "For English, press 1." Needless to say, I was expecting a better role this time around, a role that was preferably human. I remember auditioning for the role of Mother in Ragtime. I'd gone over this song 100 times in my room and thought that I had the scene down packed. After all, my nickname among my friends was Mom, so how could I go wrong? Little did I know that among the group of timid freshmen auditioning, there stood Jillian Whiffler. All eyes were on her as she sang, and you could hear a pin drop during her audition scene. She was flawless. I immediately assumed that she was one of those kids who had acted since birth, knew everything about theater, and would do anything to get a part. To no one's surprise, she was cast Mother. I expected the part to go to her head, especially considering the fact that she was a freshman who had beat out a couple seniors. However, Jillian remained modest and unassuming. This reaction surprised me and was the direct cause of our friendship. Jillian is still just as down-to-earth as she was her freshman year, and it has been my absolute pleasure to perform alongside her. These are only 3 of many anecdotes meant to show you how first impressions are not and should not forever be the image in your head when you think of someone. I can only imagine what people's first impressions of me were freshman year. Most likely, people thought I was either OCD because of my matching highlighter, pen, and binder set for each subject, or that I was one of the Kennedys, or that I was just some nerdy theater kid with a middle part. In a place where it is easy to meet someone, make a snap judgment, and retreat to the bosom of a small group of friends, it is important to remain open-minded. After all, if you don't take time to get to know people for who they are beyond those first impressions, you may never get to know the teacher who will act as a big sister, or those people in your dorm with whom you'll eat endless amounts of food, or even find out that that weird but funny kid in improv, the one with the ginger afro, may just turn out to be your boyfriend for over a year and a half. In short, first impressions exist, but they should never define a person. Take the time to get to know those around you for who they truly are, because you never know the amazing people you may have the pleasure of meeting. Thank you.
When I was 4 years old, I got punched in the face by my 6-year-old sister, Haley. We were in my babysitter's minivan, and I made the mistake of saying, "Haley still watch Barney." She turned around, wound up, and let me have it, leaving me with a bloody nose and the shock of what had just happened. Years later, when I was in 2nd grade and Haley was in 4th grade, Haley and I were home alone and fighting about our favorite singers on American Idol. Haley began to walk down her basement stairs, and when she got far enough, I slammed the door shut and locked it. The door has a lock on the outside. Hearing the door slam and the turning of the lock, she raced up the stairs and slammed her fist on the door, screaming to let her out and how dare I do this to her. I started to feel guilty for what I had done, but didn't know what to do. I couldn't just open the door. That would leave me as dead meat. So I got into a running position as far away from the door as possible while still being able to reach my hand to the lock and ran for dear life out the front door of my house. Our shenanigans continued once I got to Taft. Haley and I had always gone to the same schools, but no one in my family really thought I would end up at Taft. My ties to my friends, teams, and other aspects of home were much stronger than Haley's had been. But I saw how much Haley loved Taft, and I think a part of me said, hey, if she can do this, I can do this too. A junior monitor in Congdon and a new freshman, Haley and I were put on the same floor and hallway. My mom was excited that she knew her daughters were so close to each other, but I don't think either one of us was too excited to be that close. Maybe me a little bit because I'd missed having my sister at home for 2 years, but Haley, to have her little freshman sister right down the hallway, not so much. I feel bad for the other people who lived down the hall that year at some points. When Haley would find out I had taken her favorite cardigan again, or I'd get mad at her for stealing my food. Just because you're a monitor doesn't mean you can do that. I soon realized that much of Haley's anger at me, though, was really just her stress and frustration from junior year, mainly thanks to APUS, thanks Mr. Hawes, pen up and directed at me. Having experienced the struggle, that is APUS now. I'm looking at all you juniors now that are going through the struggle and seniors who made it through. Shout out to Antonucci C Block. I now understand why when I came into her room the night before one of her tests, and I had probably had some silly thing going on, she kind of looked at me with a blank stare as she chugged a Coke, mumbling something about the Dawes Severalty Act, and I just backed out of the room without asking any questions. Knowing now how hard it is to sometimes listen to the complaints of a freshman who wasn't even my younger sister, after also being a monitor in Congdon my junior year, I even lived in the same room she did, made me realize she actually was helpful in getting me through my freshman year. Sophomore year, Haley lived in Centen, and I lived in Congdon, so we had a whole courtyard to separate us. This worked out a lot better for us, and Haley continued to help me through Taft. I thought I was completely prepared for her to leave, but on the day of graduation, as we said goodbye, even though I was going to see her in about a week and would live with her for the entire summer, I burst into tears. No longer would I have the voice of experience and wisdom that I had had for my first 2 years at Taft and my whole life anymore. Even though we had some fights when we were little, Haley had always been my guiding light, as cliche as it sounds. When I was 5, I came home after school one day to find my dad sprawled on the kitchen floor, pale and unable to walk. The 6'6", smiling guy who taught me to ride a bike, loved boating on Lake Erie, and listening to some Hootie and the Blowfish while drinking a beer, became a patient at the hospital. Days later, he was gone, and I was a confused 5-year-old who felt lost. Haley, at 7, was better able to comprehend what was going on. She helped me through it and has continued to help me through challenges ever since. After our loss, we understood the importance we had to one another and have relied on each other in different ways since. Whenever two siblings are so close in age, it's natural to compare them. Hence, my whole life, I've been compared to Haley, and this continued at Taft. Haley, the bright student loved by teachers and students alike, was difficult to live up to. She was extremely successful here, making cum laude, winning 3 junior awards and 3 graduation awards, in addition to contributing in many other ways to the community. My whole life, I felt I had to live up to her. Although I thought Haley leaving Taft would be the end of the world, I, in many ways, have let go of my need to live up to everything she achieved and have worked to carve my own place at Taft. We did many of the same things while at Taft. We were both editors-in-chief of the Papyrus, thanks Mr. McGee for managing to never make a comparison between us this entire year. Both dorm monitors and both collegium members, to name a few. But we also did really different things. I managed to make and even captain some varsity teams, while athletics were never really her thing at all. And she was head of Model Congress and multiple clubs on campus. We found our own passions here at Taft, but one thing remains the same. Taft is a place we both care deeply about, and we both appreciate all that it has done for us. I may have followed my sister here, but I lead different from both her and from the person I was almost 4 years ago. At Taft, we are often compared to each other and compare ourselves to each other. Although this is natural, it doesn't really help anyone in the equation at all. Once you start focusing on your own self, your own goals, and your own achievements, everyone is better off. I'm so glad I had someone to help me through my first years here, but I'm also glad she moved on. We all need someone to help us through our challenges, but sometimes it's nice when they aren't on the same corridor and not in range to deliver a left hook to the nose. Thank you to Mrs. Mack, my 4-year advisor, for always being there to listen to and discuss both the important and unimportant matters of my life. Thanks to Mrs. Pfeiffer and J. Dubs for all your help with the speech and everything. Mr. McGee and Mr. McCabe for always listening to all my problems. Thank you.
Blake, take it down. Okay, let's see a show of hands out there of everyone who takes a language. Okay, that's a lot of people. Good. Perhaps then some of you have found yourself in this scenario before. So you're taking a test in your, let's say, Spanish class about a book or a play that you've just read, and there are 8 people in the class, and everyone is scribbling furiously away at the open-ended essay question. And every so often, someone will break the silence and say, "¿Cómo se dice crying?" And the teacher will respond with the correct Spanish translation. And that makes perfect sense, because the book you read was about a Venezuelan girl named Maria, whose mother supports her by smuggling drugs and she has no father. So crying is a reasonable word. But then, a couple minutes later into the test, someone says, "¿Cómo se dice water slide?" And you're like, what? Because you can't fathom how, in a million years, someone could tie water slides into their essay about the Venezuelan girl. And you start to question yourself. Are you writing about the right thing? Did you even read the right book? Is this even the right class? And you spend the rest of the period second-guessing whatever you've written on the test and cursing that annoying person who asked that question. Why do people feel the need to do that? It's something about Taft that I really don't understand. It's not the only thing, though. I don't understand why none of the carpets in Congdon match. It's like they decide to throw a red one in there every so often just to jazz it up. But speaking from experience, as one of the recipients of a red carpet, it's really unfortunate, because no neutral color schemes go with red. And I don't understand why they serve all the best lunch meals on the same day. Or how the pizza line and the pasta line always manage to merge into one, and so you never know where to stand. Or why on Parents' Day and revisit days, there are 10 minutes in between classes, but on Grandparents' Day, there are only 5. I thought I was the only person who thought that was weird, because if anyone needs extra minutes, it's someone with a walker. But the biggest thing that I don't understand is an issue that I'll have to take up with Gabby Fabre. She is the founder of Recognize the Rhino, an award that goes to a person who was anonymously submitted for having committed a random act of kindness. Now, I personally think this was a great idea on Gabby's part, but I have some issues. Since Gabby brought Recognize the Rhino to Taft 2 years ago, I've submitted over 15 people to that box, and not one of them has gotten chosen. And I know for a fact that there definitely are not that many slips because the box is in a really obscure spot, and I'm sure half of you don't know where it is. And to be honest, I'm plagued every day by the thought that there are people out there not getting enough credit for being awesome. Let me explain. I remember the first time I saw Recognize the Rhino be awarded at Assembly. This is a very loose interpretation of the situation, but I believe it went to a girl who was walking in the hallway late at night and accidentally tripped over something, which she then realized was a body, which she then realized belonged to her friend, who had somehow passed out on the floor.
The girl walking then got a faculty member to help the unconscious friend and thus save the day, an act of valor for which she was rightly applauded. I don't deny the girl this recognition she received for her actions, but at the same time, I like to think that if I was unconscious on the floor, someone would save me not because they thought, hell, why not? I'm in a giving mood today. But because it is generally assumed that when any person comes across a lifeless body on the floor, they would appropriately address the situation. I guess what I'm saying is, I was hoping that perhaps a less obvious gesture might be noticed. Which brings me back to the biggest thing that I don't understand, which is why a little more credit is not given to tiny little random acts of sunshine that brighten my day. So today, with that in mind, I would like to recognize some more rhinos for their small but oh so important gestures that have helped me get over my annoyance at the merging pizza and pasta line and enjoy being here. Okay, Blake. I've also taken the liberty of collecting dum-dums from the duty office in a variety of flavors as prizes for these people. Okay, first one, Claire Moore. Yikes. Claire was my freshman year roommate, and I had a free block freshman year, which I was really fortunate to have, and she did not. And sometimes I would come back to the room after the free block, and my bed would be made, my slippers would be lined up right next to the bed, and the room would be spotless, and all my clothes would be folded, and sometimes I had this hope that my laundry would be done. That never happened, but whatever. And she would just look at me and say, I know you like when the room's clean. So Claire didn't have to do that, but she did know me really well, and I did like a clean room. And there was nothing I liked more than coming back and having my bed made by someone who I didn't have to force do it. So the first recognized rhino goes to Claire Moore. Next up is Tyler Breen, who I actually don't think is here today, but that's all right. So I send a lot of packages because I like receiving mail, so I think people probably on the other end would like getting it too. And one time I'm at the PO, and I'm talking to Mrs. Marinello, and I'm sending this package, and typical, I don't have enough money because my package has too many things in it, and it's $6, and I'm $3 short. And I'm standing there, I'm like, Mrs. Marinello, please, I could come back. And she goes, yeah, it's fine. But then I feel really bad. And all of a sudden, this hand comes out of nowhere right behind me with $3 in it. And I was like, what? And I turn around. Oh, there he is. Hi, Tyler. And I turn around, and Tyler, I guess, had eavesdropped on the conversation, heard about my dilemma, pulled out his wallet, and funded the second half of the package delivery. So the second one goes to Tyler Breen. Third recognized the rhino goes to Harrison Glazer. It's a Friday night of a 5-day week, and we don't have classes the next Saturday, and I'm sitting in the library doing work, which no one really does on Friday of a 5-day week, but Harrison was there, so that's cool. And I'm sitting in the library doing work, and someone comes in, and they're like, black box dance. So I'm thinking, woo! So I quickly leave the library, head over to the black box, because why would you want to work when there's a black box dance? And I'm dancing, and an hour passes, and Harrison comes in, and he dances up next to me, and he's like, hey, Story, it's 9:45. I'm like, hey. And he goes, I was in the library, and it was closing, and I knew you were at the black box dance, so I figured you weren't going to come back, but you left all of your stuff there, all unpacked, all on the tables, and the library was going to close, and I didn't want anyone to take it. So I packed up your backpack for you, and I zipped it up, and I brought it over to Congdon, and I left it with Miss Ramos, so she'll take good care of it until you come back and get it. And then we kept dancing. So that goes out to Harrison. This one is for Kath and Carol. At the beginning of this year, I came back to my room after a really long day, moving everyone into their dorms. It was the first couple days of school, and I was really stressed out. And I came back to my room, and sitting on my desk was the most giant mint sensation I've ever seen. And there was a little note attached to it that says, have a good day, kitty cat. And Catherine didn't need to bring me an ice cream, but somehow she just knew that I had this really hard day. And I came back, and you guys all had cafe nap, what's better? So that one goes out to Kath and Carol. This is yeah. This is supposed to represent Juan, who was one of my pizza delivery men from Dimitri's a couple months ago, and he came and he looked like he'd been having kind of a tough day because I had ordered pizza with a friend, so he came to deliver the pizza, and my friend and I compiled our money, and I realize a lot of these stories have to do with me being short money. But we were $7 short, which is, that's not really something you let slide. So the friend said, all right, you talk to Juan, and that was his actual name, by the way, and I'll go look for $7 to cover him. So my friend was gone for about 15 minutes, which when you're standing there talking to the guy who delivered your pizza is a really, really long time. So I'm standing there talking to him, and we covered a variety of subjects, such as Spanish radio stations, what he was learning in high school, what I was learning in high school, whatever. Then the person came back, and they came back and they said, listen, I've been gone for 15 minutes, but I still couldn't manage to come up with the $7. And I guess in that 15 minutes, Juan and I had formed this friendship, which he clearly valued, because he said, I got it. And he said, don't worry about it. And he gave us the pizza, and he said, I'll cover the $7. And he's never delivered pizza to me again, but if he does, I'll pay him back that $7. And I think that if you guys ever strike up a conversation with the Dimitri's guy and learn his name is Juan, you should let him know that he deserves a round of applause. This last one is for Maggie O'Neill, and I know that the premise of this whole Recognize the Rhino thing was that not enough people get recognized for stuff that they do without being told. And I know that following the rules is something that you generally are just expected to do, but when you live in a lower classman dorm, there's girls who are just gonna kind of, whatever, not obey you. I mean, not obey, but like not follow the rules sometimes. But Maggie, I don't think she has ever broken a minor study hall rule when I'm on duty. And it's really, really refreshing when everyone else is being loud, and then Maggie comes out into the hallway and says, may I exercise my one question for the night, please? And I'm thinking, Maggie, honestly, just do whatever you want. Like, whatever. And it's just so refreshing that happens. So I think Maggie deserves a round of applause. Okay, that is the end of the PowerPoint, but just to be clear, those are not the only people who are worthy of recognition. I also think that Mrs. Marinello, having to deal with me, deserves a big round of applause. And I also think that Mr. Burnett, aka Bookstore Pete, deserves a big round of applause because I never have my card. But I would like those 8 people to be representative of the microscopically heroic feats that people at Taft accomplish every day. I would also like to dedicate this speech to my public speaking class, which is a class that I'm actually not enrolled in, I just attend. And it's a good thing I do, because without their advice, I would have spent today discussing the life expectancy rates of parasitic twins, which is disgusting. And if you have any questions about parasitic twins, you can ask them, because I gave a speech on it. Have a good day.